Dane, how are you, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Hey, pretty good. First of all, I'd like to say I actually pay money for your work, so I'm
I
I'm
appreciate
in.
that.
Yep, I'm in. Let's go. I'm a subscriber. So
Love it.
yeah, I thought you'd maybe make you like me a little more. Yeah. Got a little money every
Yeah.
month going on over. Hey, let's talk about this because here we go. And there's a couple different ways to talk about it. And I was looking at your first round, and obviously we know the quarterbacks are going to go. But let's start with the Cardinals at 3. Do you think they ended up trading that pick before the draft because somebody wants that third and fourth quarterback right there?
I think there's a good chance they do, but not until we find out what happens at 1 and 2. I think that's where the intrigue is. The closer we get to the draft, I think the better we feel Bryce Young, Alabama quarterback, will be the #1 pick to the Panthers. But that's where the intrigue starts at #2. What do the Texans do? I think from the outside looking in, it's easy to say they need a quarterback. But this is a first-year head coach, a new coaching staff. They don't feel pressured to force a quarterback at #2 if they don't, or if they aren't all in, universally 100% believe that quarterback is the pick. And so the intrigue starts at 2. And let's just say they don't take a quarterback. Let's say they take Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson, the top non-quarterback on their board. Then the Cardinals are sitting pretty at #3 with only one quarterback off the board. Their phones will be ringing, and it could be the Colts making a move just one spot to ensure they get their guy. Could be the Titans at 11 looking to trade up and get the quarterback of the future. So a lot of intrigue with the quarterbacks. That is what's going to command the talk all week, and then up until the draft actually starts Thursday night.
Why, for a bit after the Panthers traded for that #1 spot, was it so heavy CJ Stroud? Just for like 2 days, it
Mm-hmm.
was they're for sure going to take CJ Stroud. Even the odds reflected that. What was that quick hit, and why did it switch back?
Yeah, with Bryce Young, it's just tough because we've never really seen a quarterback like this. He's the moment he's drafted, he will be the smallest quarterback in the NFL, and so he's a complete outlier size wise. And talking with Panthers head coach Frank Reich at the combine, he flat out said it's a concern when talking about Bryce Young and the size. And this was before they made that move. And so I think you look at CJ Stroud, 6'3", 215, a very good pocket passer. You could look at CJ Stroud and say, okay, he's the one guy that everybody in the room is going to agree on. But I think with Bryce Young, if you can get past the size, everything else you love about him, the instincts, he plays the position like a point guard, creating space for himself. The vision to see the entire field is outstanding. A common theme among the best quarterbacks in the NFL is the ability to create. And I think that's the big difference between these two quarterbacks, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Bryce Young, it's second nature to him. It's very natural for him to move the pocket, buy those extra half seconds, allow routes to come open, anticipate those windows, and then be very accurate with his throws. Where CJ Stroud wants to live in the pocket. That's where he is at his best. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in today's NFL, you have to have some element of creating. And I think that's where with Bryce Young, he is just a little bit different. He has some magic acts back there in the pocket. So if you can get past the size, Bryce Young clearly, in my opinion, the best quarterback this year.
Yeah, the size though. I mean, that's such a massive part of it.
It
And
is.
and as he moves pockets, and I'm a massive SEC guy and watched Alabama play a lot, he almost has to move the pocket. Like he's so good at it because
Right.
he has to. And I don't know, maybe a Kyler Murray, we could talk even Drew Brees even. Has there ever been a coach who then decides to build their team a bit differently, meaning we don't want offensive linemen that tall because our quarterback isn't that tall? Would that be a consideration for once you're building that offense?
I don't think so much the offense, the personnel, the offensive linemen you're having on your roster. I think more so the play calling, though. I mean, having designed runs or designed plays so the quarterback is getting outside the pocket. So you're talking boots and nakeds and doing these things to get him on the move where he has clear passing windows. And I think the biggest concern with Bryce Young with his size is not necessarily the height. It's more so his slight build, because this is a quarterback that welcomes the chaos. He has no problem standing tough in the pocket or outside the pocket and allowing a defender come bearing down on him, because he knows that extra half second will allow a route to come open. And so he, in the NFL where everything's just a little faster, guys hit a little harder, he's going to have to take better care of his body. He weighed in at 204 at the combine. But it's, not a mystery. He didn't work out or do anything. And then at the pro day, he did have his position work out, but he didn't weigh in. He's going to be around 190, maybe 195. That'll be his consistent playing weight. We just haven't seen a quarterback like that. Even, your Russell Wilsons, your Kyler Murrays, those guys are around 210, closer to 215 by the time they fill out. Bryce Young just doesn't have that type of build. This isn't a case of, oh, well, he'll get to the NFL, put on weight. He just doesn't have that type of body type. You have to be okay with him being a little bit smaller. And it's really more about durability than the height issue with him.
So one more question about Bryce Young. And when it comes to quarterbacks with Frank Reich, I read the story about all the quarterbacks he's ever had that started for him were just massive dudes, 6'4", 6'5". That's what he preferred. That's the only way, as he's been a coach, that he has, used quarterbacks. So, I mean, even, I guess as a coach, you kind of have to kind of reorganize how you're going to run your own offense if you bring in a quarterback like you've never had before, right? You scheme completely different.
Yeah, no question. I mean, you have to have an open mind to what the college game is giving you. I think in an ideal world, you're drafting, a guy that looks like Troy Aikman, but he's got better mobility, he's got this arm, and that's great. But how are we talking about air raid Texas Tech quarterbacks before Pat Mahomes? It's just these guys don't work, they don't translate. But then a guy that's just a little bit different. He's the way he's wired, the way he plays. What does Patrick Mahomes? He's different. And so he ends up being a first-round pick, and, the legend is born. With Bryce Young, yeah, ideally you want a bigger guy, the way that we want our offense to run, is someone that can, looks like Ben Roethlisberger, can shake off contact. But Bryce is just a little different. And the way that he plays, it's such an intangible position. We've seen Jalen Hurts get that big contract recently. Above all with Jalen Hurts, the intangibles that he brings to the field and off the field in the locker room, that's a big part of his success. Bryce Young is wired a similar way. I mean, just with the way he carries himself, the toughness, the competitiveness, the intelligence, the processing. So I think that you're willing to sacrifice the size for a special talent, and I think Bryce Young falls in that category.
I'm going to spend some time on the quarterbacks. We'll go to C.J. Stroud, who will be the second quarterback off the board, most likely, unless somebody falls super, super in love with Anthony Richardson. But with C.J. Stroud, I think I saw a tweet yesterday, and I don't know if the tweet's true or not, but it goes to a bigger question that I have about teams or people wanting to diminish players so they can get them. And C.J. Stroud, the story was he was supposed to show up to the Peyton Manning Passing Academy and did not show up. It kind of ghosted it. I don't know if you've heard that story. I don't know if it's true, but my question is this a common thing where people are saying stuff about players so they will fall more and possibly fall to them in the draft?
I mean, we knew about this last summer. It wasn't a big deal then. It's not a big deal now. Teams have certainly known about it. Unless we're talking about a gas mask, Laramie Tunsil type of situation, teams know what's going on. And so nothing that I say or any analyst out there says is going to affect how teams rank these players. With CJ, he's not a perfectly clean prospect by any means. He has his areas where teams are a little concerned, but above all, I think you feel great about his about his floor as an NFL passer because he's so clean from the pocket. His ability to read pre and post snap, and then his anticipation down the field, the ability to throw with touch and touch up every level of the field, be accurate. Now, I think he helped by Ohio State's offense with the two tackles that will be drafted, one in the first round, one in the second round. It's a really an amazing cast of wide receivers. Last year, 2021, when he had Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba. This past year, Marvin Harrison Jr. Were in this draft. He might be the first non-quarterback drafted. He is that good of a player. Now, and so you have to try and scout CJ independent of all of that. Plus, the scheme and the offense that he played in, which is not always easy to do. But I think you feel good about his floor as an NFL starter. And then can he be creative enough? I think that's, like I said, the big difference between Bryce and CJ. Can he develop, as an improviser, using his legs? We saw that a little bit against Georgia in the college football playoffs, where he played his best game on the biggest stage against the biggest defense, or the best defense. And you have to be encouraged by that, no question. But ultimately, his NFL ceiling will be determined by how he can develop as a creator in the NFL.
Colts at 4 in your mock, Anthony Richardson. And, I watched him play at Florida a lot. I watched him early when he was like, this guy's going to win the Heisman. Then I watched him middle and late. They're like, this guy is not good at all. So I've got to watch the whole rise and fall. And then in the workouts, his throwing, he looks like a linebacker. Like I've seen the whole picture with Richardson. But when I see the Colts, and Anthony Richardson is such a raw, he will be such a raw NFL quarterback. And if he goes to the Colts, I feel like they're going to want to play him quickly. I feel like a team that would have a more established quarterback would be a team that would go after Anthony Richardson. Do you think the Colts are going to go for Richardson and then just grab him and throw him in the fire?
Well, that's the question, because I think Anthony Richardson's a player that you want to sit and develop a little bit, but at the same time, he needs to play. That's how Anthony Richardson's going to get better. And selfishly, that's why I hoped he returned to Florida for another year, is so he could get better and work through some of these things. But I don't think that him sitting and watching film and reading the playbook, that's not going to help his accuracy become more consistent. Actually being on the field, playing with the ones, getting those live reps, that is how he's going to get better. And, we have to remember he's just 20 years old. He didn't come from a big time high school. So it's not like he's been groomed for this for a long time. Only 13 career starts. He was below 500 in those 13 career starts. But he's a total freak show as a talent. When you talk about over 6'4", 245 pounds, outstanding arm, if you take his best plays, he looks like an accurate quarterback. I mean, he has a lot of good tape out there, throw in the Utah tape, the season opener last year. But to your point, it was a roller coaster with him. There were several times where he's missing open receivers, or he's not hitting, the ball placement is not there where it needs to be. And they're little things like hitting a receiver on the right shoulder on a slant. If you hit him on the opposite shoulder, the defender's going to be right there. It's going to be an incomplete pass or a stop right there. You hit him on the correct shoulder, all of a sudden that 5-yard pass is turning into a 12-yard gain, maybe even more. So some of the little things, the details, there's just a lot that Anthony Richardson doesn't know at this point. And so I think as an organization, you have to be comfortable with the timeline that Anthony Richardson gives you. And maybe the Colts are, maybe they're not. Remember, the Colts, they have a first-year head coach as well. Chris Ballard, the GM, you could say he's maybe on the hot seat, and maybe he wants someone that is more NFL ready. But you think about what head coach Shane Steichen, what he did with Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, it'd be awfully fun to see what he could do with an Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis.
The Seahawks have their guy at least for the next couple of years. I think we see that. But one pick back, if Anthony Richardson's available, is that something you could see Seattle doing and just going, yeah, you're our guy, but not right this second?
I would be surprised, just because I think that they really feel like they have a chance to go for it here with Geno Smith. But you know what? They have 2 first-round picks. So they might see this pick as being, house money. And you know what? Let's take our quarterback of the future right here and put him in a good quarterback situation where, we don't have to put him onto the field before he's ready. So I don't think you can completely rule it out, although I would be surprised if the Seahawks draft a quarterback at 5. You could probably say the same thing about the Lions at 6. They also have 2 first-round picks, and conceivably a quarterback in place that they feel like is good enough to win with in Jared Goff. But how often are you going to have a chance at an Anthony Richardson, a guy that you can draft and develop? And so, the Seahawks at 5, the Lions at 6, 2 really interesting landing spots. And then even at the Raiders at 7, Jimmy Garoppolo, is he going to be able to play a 17-game schedule? You look at 8 with the Falcons. Ritter is he's going to his second year now. Desmond Ritter from Cincinnati, fine quarterback. I don't think they believe he's the future, though. The Falcons, if they have a chance at one of these quarterbacks, could they make a move? And then I mentioned the Titans. The Titans have made a lot of calls about what it would take to move up a little bit. And, that's not completely uncommon. You always try to lay the groundwork for potential trades. Doesn't mean they're going to make a move, but they've at least examined the possibilities if they want to go up and get one of these quarterbacks.
Speaking of the Titans, you have Levis going to the Titans at 11 in your mock. Have teams fallen out of, I won't say out of love, but have they fallen less lovey with Levis over the past few weeks?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I would say that the what he did this past year was certainly did not live up to expectations. But I think that an important thing when you talk about quarterbacks, with a guy like Will Levis, you have to separate the reasons from the excuses. And with Will Levis, You think about what he lost from last year. He lost to the play caller, Liam Cohen, who left last February to become the offensive coordinator of the Rams. He lost his top receiver in Wan'Dale Robinson. He lost 3/5 of that offensive line. And then you also factor in that he was hurt most of this year. I mean, people don't realize he was getting shots before every game just so he could go out there and be a functional player. So all these things combined, and then you factor in the tools are off the charts. Physically, the way he's built, he's also extremely intelligent. The toughness is outstanding. A lot of teams are going to want to work with that. They're looking at it and say, yeah, I wish he was more consistent. Yeah, I wish he saw things a little bit quicker. But the tools that he offers, both physically and mentally, if we get that type of talent with our coaches, we feel like we might have something special down the road. So I think Will Levis still really well liked among NFL teams, and why he's still slated to go somewhere in the top 10 picks, even though that senior year did not go quite according to plan.
You think Hendon Hooker slips into the back of the first round?
There's a good chance, and I think a big part of it is that fifth-year option, because with a guy like Hendon Hooker, you probably taking a redshirt year that first year. So if you lose that year, getting the fifth-year option really helps you recoup a year with Hendon Hooker, coming off the ACL injury, already 25 years old, and he's coming from a system that we haven't, it comes from that Art Briles system where we haven't seen quarterbacks really make a smooth transition to the NFL, where you're going from half field reads to full field reads. You're going from an offense in college where it just spreads out the defense, creates a lot of open holes in coverage, where everything's a lot more condensed in the NFL. So it's a projection. I think he's a second-round player, but it would not surprise me at all if we end up seeing him in the first round, especially for a team that wants to get that fifth-year option. Maybe we see a team like, if the Colts don't draft one at 4, we can see the Colts trade back into the first round. Maybe the Seahawks. Several teams could get back into that first round in order to get that fifth-year option.
Jalen Carter falling in your mock, obviously the recent controversy, the very sad story. You have him at 9. Probably a top 3 pick, if not. I mean, how much money do you think he lost from this? And do you think that the Bears are the first team that kind of need that tackle and also are willing to deal with whatever baggage comes with drafting him?
Yeah, it's a complicated prospect to talk about because based just on talent, you can make the easy argument he is the top player in this draft. Every team wants that interior disruption. Edge rushers are great, but if you can get that disruption up the middle and really force quarterbacks to really think that's coming and have to move different ways, that's what really gets quarterbacks shaky and off their game. So his block destruction is phenomenal. It's power, it's quickness, it's a skill level where he's still young and he's still figuring things out, but he still shows a very high skill level at defensive tackle. So based just on talent, you're drafting this guy in the top 3, no doubt. Now, factoring in the off-field, the maturity, that's where the question marks come in. And maturity is not guaranteed as we age, as we get older, especially in the NFL where big contracts are involved. It's a lot are put on these guys at an early age. It can be tough for some guys to really manage everything. And with Jalen Carter, it's a big risk, big reward type of pick. I think he's going to end up going somewhere between picks 5 and pick 9. So you look at the Seahawks at 5, the Lions at 6, the Raiders at 7, the Falcons at 8, and then the Bears there at number 9. Which team in that 5-pick range has the infrastructure in the locker room where they feel like, we can bring in a player like this and, he's going to fit what we're doing or what we're building, and then also be able to take that type of swing, because this is a home run swing with the Jalen Carter, but he's too good to fall too far. I think someone will end up taking that swing somewhere in the top 10.
2 more questions about the draft and a couple other questions. As far as Will Anderson Jr., I mean, it looks like that guy's just ready to go. Like, he looks like you could plug him, and he's going to be ready to go next year, and he's just going to be a great edge. Well, the difference between Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson, is there a distinct difference in the two that would easily make Will Anderson the Jr.? I mean, I've also heard his dad. His dad's alive too. But Will Anderson Jr., that first non-quarterback off the board?
Yeah, like with one guy, Will Anderson, he was the guy the moment he showed up. He's the first linebacker to ever start for Nick Saban as a true freshman. This guy was producing at a high level from the get-go. At 3-year junior, 62 tackles for a loss in 41 games. I mean, the production is just off the charts. 6'3.5", 255 pounds. At the very least, it's hard to view Will Anderson being a bust. At the very least, this guy is going to be a starter for a long time. At the best, he's going to be in Pro Bowls, win all pros. With Tyree Wilson, I think there's a little more fluctuation with the different outcomes of what could happen, because he is, talk about toolsy, a guy 6'5.5", 275 pounds. The arms are huge. I mean, it's almost 36-inch arms. The wingspan is huge. A really good athlete for that size. He can win in different ways: power, quickness, scheme versatile. You want him lining up as a 5 technique, a 4-eye. He can do that. You want him dropping in space. He can play on his feet. But this is also a fifth-year senior, a guy that's older than Anderson, and didn't consistently put up that production you would expect for a guy with his talent. So for a guy that played at Texas Tech in the Big 12, why only 7 sacks this year? Why not producing at a higher rate when he was younger? Sometimes the light bulb doesn't come on for guys right away. Sometimes it takes time. But for a Tyree Wilson, you love the traits, you love the tools, a little more of a projection. For me, I'm going to take the guy that I saw produce day in, day out in Will Anderson at Alabama. And I think most teams agree with that.
I want to go to Bijan Robinson, my final question about this year's draft, and then move to a couple other things. But Bijan Robinson, the only running back on your first-round mock, the only running back on really any mock I've seen, period. Now, why draft a running back in the first round? They're just easily replaceable. But why Bijan Robinson, and why so high in the first round? I mean, in the top 16 picks here.
He should be a top 10 pick. Bijan Robinson is that type of player. He's that good. There's a lot of discussion about running backs when it comes to the draft, and honestly, I think we've kind of gone too far, in my opinion. These guys aren't paid that much where you can't draft a running back in the top 10. Now, signing him to that second contract, that's a different discussion. That's where we can get into, like, is that worth it? Is that a smart business move? 100% on board with that. But a special talent like a Bijan Robinson, who, as talk about the balance, the quickness for a guy that size, the ability to create on his own, whether it's with power, whether it's with elusiveness, he can do that at a big time level. And then also forget the running back tree. As a route runner, he could run the wide receiver route tree. Line him up in the slot, line him up out wide. He'll run the post. He'll run these different routes, catch the ball away from his body, and do it at a high level. So I would have no trouble drafting a Bijan Robinson in the top half of round 1, and I don't think you're going to regret it. And it'll be interesting where he ends up. You look at Philly at number 10. Dropping him in that offense would be so much fun to watch. But the Eagles, traditionally not a team that drafts running backs in the first round. Where is Bijan Robinson going to land? There's not a lot of obvious landing spots, but at the same time, he's too good to fall too far. So he's going to go somewhere in the top 20 picks. It's just a matter of, where does that end up going? Could it be the Commanders at 16? Could we see a surprise team, like the Patriots or someone swoop in there? He's too good to fall too far on draft day.
NFL Draft 2023, the beast. I mean, it is, guys, I'm telling you, it is intense. It's everything you want to know. It came out April 10th, but it is hundreds of scouting reports, 1,900 players evaluated. It's 300,000 words. I mean, I wrote 2 books, and together, those books did not, I don't know if it's 300,000 words. I'll be honest with you, Dane. Like, this is a lot of work you've put into this, and there's a 7-round mock draft on the Atlantic. By the 7th round, you just guessing?
Well, no, I mean, you try to it's educated guesses, put it that way. You try to, you pay attention to 30 visits, you pay attention to who's talking to who. Certain teams have certain trends. They go for high upside edge rushers late in the draft, or they want their backup quarterback. So you pay attention to all these things and try to be as realistic as possible. And so, the feedback on the draft guide's been great. No other draft guide out there has testing data from all the pro day and combine data for almost 1,900 players, but it's in there. And so you want to know my top 350 wide receivers in this draft? You can find those. And so over 400 reports, and people have really enjoyed it. It's a resource guide above everything else. Whether you agree with my rankings or not, you have this by your side during all 3 days of the draft. You won't be disappointed.
He has so many wide receivers that I'm at receiver 322, and I haven't played since my senior year of high school. So, he's so in depth. He's done his homework so much. Hey, listen, I'm not going to tell you how I feel about this. I'm going to ask you because you will know more about this than I will, and then I will either be proven right or wrong. But when it comes to Tim Couch, do you feel like if Tim Couch would have been in a better system, that he would have been a better organization, I should say? Do you think if he'd have been given the tools and been in a better organization, that he would have been a much better NFL quarterback with a lot of longevity.
100%. It's funny you mentioned that. That is the draft that made me fall in love with scouting and evaluation. A 13-year-old growing up in Northeast Ohio, the Browns are coming back as an expansion franchise and trying to figure out who should be that number 1 overall pick. It was fascinating. And, that was the Browns in 99 were one of the worst expansion franchises we've ever seen. They just did not have talent on that roster to support a quarterback. And then it didn't help that they just did not draft well. Courtney Brown the next year, Gerard Warren the next year, passing on LaDainian Tomlinson and all these talents they could have had. But not having the offensive line help specifically, that Tim Couch, if he goes to a different, and I always love to play this game. If the Bears drafted Patrick Mahomes that draft, 2017, instead of Mitchell Trubisky, and then Mitchell Trubisky goes to the Chiefs with a better infrastructure, Andy Reid running that offense. How do we look at those two careers now? Is Mitchell Trubisky still with the Chiefs? It was Patrick Mahomes able to overcome what all the challenges that he would have faced in Chicago? Is he that good of a talent where it didn't matter? He was going to be able to overcome that. And it goes back to Tim Couch. If Donovan McNabb was the number 1 overall pick to the Browns, Tim Couch went 1 pick later to the Eagles, which had a better setup, better team. They were in the Super Bowl a couple years later. How are we looking at those two careers differently? So it's always fun to do those sliding doors, the dominoes. So much that happens in the draft. One little decision can change the trajectory of all these different careers and teams, and it's kind of fun to look back at it and kind of wonder.
I'm a big Tim Couch advocate when we talk about quarterbacks that were way better than they were allowed to be. I'm always like, Tim Couch got screwed. If he'd have been on any other team, it'd have been a whole different story. And mostly I'm laughed at and told to leave the room. But Dane, I'm going to save this clip and I'm going to play it every single time I get into the Tim Couch argument. Look, here's the deal. Everybody, a resource guide is an excellent, even with fantasy football, which is, coming up and everybody wants to find the rookie. You want it's all here. So for the draft, the timing is here, but also for fantasy football, his Twitter is DP Brugler. We'll post it up there in our notes. And also the Beast. That's it. You guys get it. Hey, Dane, I'm a big fan of your work because you put a lot of time and effort into it. You're very thorough. I can appreciate that. And I really appreciate the time you spent with us today.
No, anytime. I appreciate it.
All right, Dane. See you, buddy.
Thank you.